You're listening to the Social Media Insider Podcast, a podcast by MediaCrate, where we know that social media marketing can be complicated, and that's why we're focusing on the tools, tactics, and strategies that are helping to grow businesses just like yours every day.
Welcome back to another episode of the Social Media Insider Podcast. My name is Marquis and I am your host, and I want to thank you for listening. There are literally probably like 7 million different podcasts on marketing, on social media, on Facebook, and you have tuned into this one. Maybe you've subscribed, maybe you're just listening for the first time, and I do want to thank you so much. It means a lot. Anytime I get a comment or an email or someone sees me at an event and they say, I love your podcast. And I think, wow, you actually listen to it. That's great. So you're listening. Thank you so much for being here. And on today's show, we're going to be talking about Facebook ads, and more specifically, how and what you should do to optimize your Facebook ad design. Now, this episode is for anyone at any level who is either just starting out or has been running ads for a while. Preferably, if you've got some experience with ads, this is going to be a lot more beneficial to you. But if you are just getting going, then there's definitely going to be some stuff in here that you can take away. And so before I answer the question, why should you optimize your Facebook ads? Just think about the last time you were, scrolling through Facebook. In some instances, think about what actually stopped you from scrolling through your feed, because sometimes we just get on autopilot and you're just kind of going through and you see something and it doesn't spark any interest and you just keep on going. So what was that thing that really stopped you? Was it because maybe the page name was familiar? Was it because the image was eye-catching? Was it the headline that grabbed your attention? What was it that really brought you in? And that's what we're going to be talking about today, because there's no secret that, in this sea of ads and content and blogs and images and cat videos and memes, that it's getting harder and harder to reach an audience, and more importantly, capture their attention long enough for them to see what your message is, be interested enough to take notice in it, and actually click through to what you're offering them, whether it be a product that you're selling or a blog that you're promoting. So think about what that thing is. And that is why we're talking about this today, because there is so much out there. You're putting in all this time and energy, setting up different audiences and different ad sets and ads, and you're doing some A/B testing to see what's working, what's not. You're setting schedules, and there's just so much that goes into the back end. It would just be such a shame if you're doing all of that and then someone was just scrolling on by your ad because you're using a low quality image or an overused stock image potentially, or just something that just didn't have anything to do with your offer at all. And I don't want that to happen to you. And so that's why I created this episode. So let's jump right into it. So here are just some examples. I just basically trying to answer the question above, why is it important to do this? And it's no secret that good design gets your target audience to engage with your brand. That's just one thing. Your brand is what defines you, what sets you apart. And so if the design of your ads or even your organic content on social doesn't line up with your brand, what's that going to do to your credibility? And so you're basically saying, this is our brand, we stand behind this is what we believe in, and this is how we represent ourselves online. And if your audience is, say, graphic designers, because it's a super simple example, and you're putting something in front of these graphic designers that doesn't look good, they're not going to want to ever engage with you ever again, because clearly you are not an authority on design and they have no business doing business with you. Your design communicates your brand. Like I said, this is what defines you, and it's an extension of your company as well. It's not something to be taken on as an afterthought. It's something that should be worked into your actual strategy when you are creating your ads. Good design really makes you more visible to people, and that's number 3, because if something is really really great and the design is eye-catching and it's poppy and it's capturing the attention of these people, what are they going to do on social? Well, hopefully they're going to share it. And they're going to share it with their network of, if we keep the example going of graphic designers, they're going to share it with their network. Maybe they're going to put it in a Facebook group that they're a part of. I see that so much where people will take ads and put them in a popular Facebook group and get people's feedback on it and see what they think. And all of that momentum just builds for your brand as well. So it increases your visibility. Number 4 is good design drives conversions. You've heard about landing page optimization and landing page design and A/B testing and all of that. It works the same way on the front end too. Before people even get to your landing page, before they get to your website to buy that thing or to download that guide, what does the design of the ad actually look like? Are they going to click through? Is the call to action in a clear spot? Are you using the right kind of messaging, right? So for instance, if you're a grandmother and you see, an ad with a heartwarming image of a child getting a hug from their grandma, wouldn't you be compelled to follow the ad's call to action? And furthermore, like if the ad was promoting a handmade sweater, let's say, for children, wouldn't you want to click on the ad, if it said buy now, right? So you're putting your design in a space where it's speaking to people and it's driving conversions. You wouldn't want to put something on there if you were trying to sell children's sweaters that just didn't make any sense. And so design is important because before the person even makes the decision to buy now, you're almost telling them why they need to buy now. You're letting them connect with your product or service because what they're seeing in front of them is important to them. And the last thing, number 5, is good design reinforces your brand's message. So it's important to really understand what this point means. And, some advertisers only care about having a nice image on their ads. Some only care about, the message because they believe that's more important than what the graphics are doing. But really, it's the ad and the eye-catching nature of the ad that conveys your message, that helps your ad to resonate with your audience and then ultimately drive conversion. And it's also important in advertising. If your message and your image complement each other, you've got the recipe for success right there. So now I want to talk about how to optimize your ads. Okay, so as I mentioned already, your message and your images and your graphics, they really should accompany each other really well to drive those conversions. Psychologically, it also plays a huge role in your design to, put things in certain places, to use certain color. And we're getting super, super technical there. And there's studies on all of that kind of stuff, why you'd want to use, the color blue if you were a dentist or a doctor or trying to sell cars, right? Or if you're using some other color like white, and I know it's not a color, it's a shade or negative space, whatever it may be, but white plays a huge role if you are trying to promote cleanliness and purity and, peace and things like that. So it all depends on what your messaging is. You want to be thinking about a lot of those things. And so the number one on how to is to use great visuals. And so kind of under that, high quality every single time. There are sources, and I'll link to some of them in the show notes, that all they do is they tell you what dimensions you need to use. We actually created a quick cheat sheet, again, and I'll link to it in the show notes, that lets you know what all of these size dimensions should be for all the social channels. And in this case, Facebook ads and covers and all that. But having a low quality or a small image that's going to come out blurry is not going to do you any good. Okay. Along with that, stock imagery. I mentioned it a bit earlier, but if you're using stock imagery that is, I'll say popular, but a better word may be overused. You see it a lot. It's the laptop in someone's hand is pointing at it. And maybe there's a picture of a news feed on that computer screen. And your messaging is, the 5 tips on how to optimize your content for your website, right? We've seen that image so many times and we almost become blind to it. And not to say that there's anything wrong with stock imagery. I would just say, think a little bit outside of the box, because it's easy to go on to Unsplash or, Pexels and pick up a stock image and pick up one of the first ones that you see. But think of how many other people are potentially doing the exact same thing. You also want to use original graphics when possible. Now, this is something that I'm currently experimenting with, but creating different graphics that are unique to your brand, using your colors, using your typography, using some of your brand elements in that design as well, because that will help your brand not only stand out, but create some consistency and some flow for you when people are reading your blog content, or in this case, when they're seeing your ads. If they consistently see your brand colors, your typography, and they're linking that back to that website that they visited, or that blog that they read, or that email newsletter that they subscribe to, or that thing that they've just seen over and over and over again, it's just building that level of consistency for them where they trust you maybe a little bit more. I would say that if you're promoting a local business, it may seem like common sense, but people don't often think about that. If you're promoting a local business in a specific place, in a city, state, wherever it may be, use specific location-based images, right? If you're promoting a business in, say, Paris, France, you can probably use an image of the Eiffel Tower as a backdrop. People will obviously recognize the Eiffel Tower, and they'll know that it has something to do with, say, France or the French culture. There's instant recognition there because you've made it really, really simple for them. So you also want to use visual contrast or filters. So I'll caution you, we've seen some really bad filter work. I mean, Instagram was pretty much instrumental in, making filters really popular and, putting these different gradients and hues over top of our images. So there's a good way to do it and a not so good way to do it. But using the right combination of contrast and filters for your image can be really, really useful. Now, there's a reason why Instagram got so popular, and it's because the people love them. Just make sure that you don't overdo it. Okay. Another how-to is use carousel ads whenever possible. All right. If you have a really high quality image, create a theme or a story, just a few different connected images. And the carousel ads are perfect for that reason, because you can start them off at image 1 and kind of tell a story as you're going through. And as they scroll, it will be revealed to them the next stage in the story, and they'll be able to connect with you so much more. And you'll be able to share that story across, 4, 5, 6 images versus trying to squeeze it all into one image and tell a story and connect with someone. So there's lots of ways that you can do that. And carousel ads, create an effect similar to a panoramic shot, right? So take a look at some examples on Facebook when you get a chance. Also, when it comes to optimizing your ad design, you want to have a unique value proposition, okay? So now that you've captured your audience's attention, thanks to the graphics in your ad, and you've selected some high quality ones, and you're using the right ad type, they're going to be curious about what you're offering them. Okay. This is where your value proposition really does come in. You have to convince your reader that they're going to get, amazing value from choosing your brand over, say, your competitors. For example, if you're promoting, say, a gym, you should make it really clear in your ad that you're offering something of high value for a fraction of the cost, right? So you can say, that for the first 100 customers who take advantage of your offer, they're going to get an 80% discount on their gym membership. That is a steal. If you ever see that and you're looking for a gym, opt in, because that is a steal, right? Who wouldn't love 80% off anything? It doesn't matter if you even want one or need one in your house, right? 80% off of anything, you're probably going to opt into it, right? So in your ad, you can list, what's included with the membership. And so they can kind of decide right away if this is going to be a good fit for them or if they're going to pass it up. Because we talked about conversions earlier. If they get to your landing page and they have to read there a bunch of text as to why this thing is good, and maybe there's some features of the gym, and then there's more stuff that they have to read, they're probably going to get confused or overwhelmed, and they're going to leave your page and they're not going to convert. So in this case, it is the responsibility of that ad and the copy on that ad to get your viewer, your consumer in this case, to understand why they need to advance. What is going to really grab them? And I'd recommend putting that information, that little tidbit, that little why in like the first 2 sentences as soon as they see it. Or you can even put it in your headline description of your ad. This is the space that you really want people to look at right away, understand what are they looking at, why should they continue watching this video, why should they scroll to the next image in the carousel, whatever it is, tell them right away so that you can get that extra few seconds to help convert that lead or that prospect. Okay, so when it comes to writing headlines, so many different factors. And we talked about A/B testing briefly, but this is where it can really come into play. When you're splitting your ads, you can try different headlines. You can have them spread across different, ad sets and, different ads altogether. But your headline and your copy and your description is so important at this point. So we already mentioned this, mention the reason why you want them to click through. Okay. And in that headline, you can also, mention their pain point, right? What is that thing that they're struggling with every single day that you want to help them to fix, right? You are going to solve their problem. So say it right away. Another way is you can ask a question. Okay. When you ask a question in your headline, people's involuntary reaction is to answer it in their minds. Okay. So here's an example. What are you going to have for lunch today? Maybe you already had lunch today, but now you're thinking about your lunch, right? You don't even know when you're going to eat lunch, maybe, but now you're thinking about your lunch. So you ask that question, get the person thinking about it, and you're going to up your chances of conversion, or again, give yourself that extra few seconds, right? Give yourself that second chance to convert that person. You want to show them why they should stick around and not just dismiss you. I'd also encourage you to add a little bit of humor. Right? A funny or witty headline is catchy. There's no denying that. A headline that gets reactions from your audience is a great advertising tool. So try to think of something witty that will make your readers smile, even if it's just for a second. And here's where I'd probably give you an example of something really witty. And I have nothing. So I'm just going to move on. The last one is use a language your audience will understand. Like you and I are talking right now, or I'm talking to you, you're listening, you can understand the words. I'm not using, strange language. I'm not using corporate speak. I'm just speaking to you. And hopefully you can understand what I'm saying. But if you're targeting a specific group of people, know their language. And I'm not talking regional, geographic language, but if you're, targeting, say, anime lovers, first thing that popped into my head, you may want to use some reference to anime, maybe Dragon Ball Z, or what's that thing that they used to say, Kamehameha, right? I don't even know how to spell that, but use something that audience would understand right away, right? Basically, try to get your audience attention and their trust by letting them know that you speak their language and you understand who they are, right? And then once you've got your headline down, you can put the rest of the details in the ad description. Keep your description short and to the point. You don't want people to read an essay here. It'll just turn them off of your brand and they'll continue scrolling down your feed. Now, long form stories do work in some cases. If you are an individual, an entrepreneur, a public figure on Facebook, there's times where telling your story and sharing that can work in your favor, but more than likely, the companies that we work with here at Media Crate, they are B2B, right? And so they have a product, they have a service, they have a solution for a very specific person. And we just want to be able to capture the attention of the person on the other side so that they can deliver that product or service. In your ad description, you can include some social proofs and even testimonials, right? If you've got customer reviews, pick the best ones and use those in your ad. If you've got a lot of users or customers, mention them as well, right? There's never a limit to how much you can have in your ads. And like I said, if you're finding that it's too much to fit into one ad description or one headline, just try another ad, right? Change up the headline, change the description. Instead of having a carousel, change the image. There's no limit to what you can do as far as optimizing your ads go. You can always try anything. What you'll find is that as soon as you start running those ads, Facebook and the people that you're putting the ads in front of will tell you which ones they don't like. And you'll see that because they'll either underperform by costing you way too much for a click or a landing page view, or there'll just be no engagement or activity on that ad type. And if that's the case, just turn it off at that point. The last point for today is just have a clear call to action. Even if you've used the most attractive and relatable image on your ad along with the most engaging headline you've ever written, right? If you don't have a clear call to action, people are going to get confused by what you want them to do, right? If you want to get those conversions, they need to have a clear call to action in your ad. And ultimately, you're paying Facebook for these ads. So you want to make sure that when you do get that person's attention, you don't just leave them hanging. You give them an opportunity to take that next step with your business. You've worked, you've done all the optimizing, you've found the audience, you've done everything. Now you have their attention. You've got their attention and they've given you that little bit. Now, to keep their trust, you want to say, hey, take the next step with us. Click on this link, click on this image, and let's move forward together. And you want to show them how to do that, right? And we're not going to talk about landing pages today, but it's no surprise that you want to make sure that your landing page is also optimized so that when your user does get there, they don't opt out, because ultimately it will affect the full system if one of those cogs is not working. So that's it for today. I hope you took something from this. I'm going to have all this in the show notes. And we've actually produced a blog that covers a lot of all this stuff more in depth. So I'd love you to go and check it out. Thanks for listening today. And if you ever have anything you want me to talk about on the podcast, just send me an email to marquis@mediacrate.social. I'd love to hear from you. I'd love to hear what you have to say, what your thoughts are on the podcast. Leave us a review online. That would be great. That is my call to action today. Go leave us a review on iTunes or whatever podcast download listening service that you subscribe to. But iTunes would be great because those are the ones that actually matter. Thanks for tuning in today. We'll talk to you next time. Bye.
Thanks for listening to the Social Media Insider. Please don't forget to rate and review this podcast on your preferred channel. Keep in mind, if there's anything you ever want to hear on the podcast, send an email to info@mediacrate.social or follow us on our social channels @MediaCrate to continue the conversation. Thanks for thinking inside the box. We'll talk to you next time.